hold on. Grab my water. Hello. How are you? Haven't seen you all year. Y'all better not start barking as soon as I start this video. Anywho, hey everyone, it's Pharmacy here with the dashing trio. Solo, Chewy, and Theo are all right here staring at me because they think I'm supposed to play with them. They don't realize that Mama is back at work now. So my little vacation from the day job is over. And yeah, jumping right into 2022. I hope each of you watching this had a positive and love-filled entree into this new calendar year. And I hope you have really big plans for 2022, big to you and relative to you, for life. And of course, if you're watching this, I'm assuming you have some interest in farming or growing. If you're new to the channel, thank you so much for joining. I am Pharmacy. I am CEO of Green Heifer Farms, a family farm that I founded in North Carolina. We grow medicinal plants and herbs that we use in our own line of wellness products. Right now, those products are teas and steams. So we have really unique and delicious custom blends. So I'm going to talk more about some of our products this year on this channel. But today, for the first video of 2022, I really wanted to have a more in-depth conversation with you about grants, because I get asked that a lot, especially when people find out that I am a actual certified, like I'm a fundraiser by trade. Now, a lot of people don't understand the fundraising profession, okay? They instantly think of grants. Oh, you're a fundraiser. You go after grant money. I did initially. That was my first job in fundraising. It was in federal and state grant proposals, public proposals. Then I moved into corporate and foundations. Then I moved to working with individuals. And that's what I do now. I work with actual individuals. So instead of going to the company for money, I may possibly be working professionally with the CEO of the company or the chairman or chairperson of the company to help them direct their philanthropic budget. So yeah, that's what I do. But I did cut my teeth in fundraising. My first job was as a grants writer. So I am very familiar with grants. Now, I do get asked by folks sometime if I help others with grant applications. Not on a one-by-one basis, I do not. I don't have the capacity. Sometimes it could be a conflict of interest. I have to be very careful to ensure that what I'm doing for my farm is not in conflict with what I do professionally. So there's that, and there's just the fact that I don't have the time. So I look at these videos as a way for me to be able to help you be more successful in grant applications and not look at grants necessarily as this scary thing. I know many people feel intimidated by the whole idea of grant writing. They may feel that they're not a strong writer. They may feel that they have a hard time articulating what it is that they're trying to say. I hope through this video, I'll be able to give you some tips that make you feel more confident with grants, and also hope to demystify them a bit. So if that is something you're interested in, then please stay tuned. I am gearing it more towards those in the agricultural space, but there's some relevant stuff I feel that's good for anybody who is interested in learning more about writing grants or securing grant funding for their business entities. So without further ado, let's get started. So a few house cleaning details. I've had some of you reach out to me and they're like, you don't remind people all the time to subscribe to your videos. I just feel anybody coming over here, for the most part, like, we're grown folks. You know if you want to subscribe to somebody's channel or not. I mean, you know how YouTube works. So if you do, thank you. I appreciate it. And if not, I respect it. You know, I respect it. Do what you need to do in 2022. Do what you need to do in 2022. And what was the other thing? I forgot, y'all. I forgot. If I remember it, I'll bring it back up. But let's get started on this grants conversation. I have another video. I'll try to remember to put the card up that is specifically on government grants. This one will be about grants in general, just to basically demystify them and then to also give some tips that will apply regardless of what kind of grant it is. So first, let's define what a grant is. Okay? A grant is a sum of money that is given by the funder, grantor, corporation, foundation, whoever's giving out the money. They give the money to the grantee. That is the person who receives the money. This money does not have to be paid back as long as the grantee, the recipient, does what they said they were going to do in the grant proposal or application to the funder or the grantor. So whatever you submit, that is what you are supposed to do in order to not be obligated to have to pay the money back or just getting a black mark. And you know, grantors, funders, they do talk to each other in certain spaces. So you want to make sure that your reputation is solid. Now, typically grants, or most grants, I will say, most grants are given for charitable causes. And for the majority of these grants, there is an expectation that said charity will either have a designation from the IRS stating that they are a nonprofit entity, and there are a lot of them. The most commonly known one is the 501c3. I hear people call it 501c and everything. It's 501c3, but there are other designations. Or it may be a faith-based organization, hospital organization, or something like that. So there are certain designations that the IRS gives, right? That says, okay, this organization is a member of this particular group. And for a lot of grants, they do want to give it to an organization that has those tax designations, because it makes it easier for them too on the tax side. In addition to, they feel that they're making an investment towards whatever cause, whatever nonprofit cause that organization advances. Okay. My battery's trying to die, y'all, on my phone. So the unique thing about farms are that farms are eligible for government grants as a for-profit entity, which the government is very limited when it comes to grant money and what it gives to for-profits. It, by far and large, is focused more on nonprofits and on institutions of higher learning, research organizations, etc. Okay, corporations have, if they're a bit more advanced in their philanthropic program, they typically have, they can call it different things, but usually they call it a corporate social responsibility program or strategy. And this is the corporation saying, okay, we understand we're supposed to be socially responsible. These are the things that we are going to give to or invest in. All right. Now, not every corporation has one, and definitely a lot of them are not proportionate to the amount of profits that they receive. So there's that. And there's this idea that corporations are just giving out all this money. In actuality, the most recent numbers I could find were from 2020, but it actually showed that corporate giving decreased in 2020, whereas foundation giving went up, and of course, individuals always give the most. So I do want to have a conversation about raising money from individuals and provide some tips on that as well in a future video. If you're interested, let me know if that's something you're interested in. But anyway, okay, so back to grants. So you got your corporate grants. Corporations typically either get the money as some corporations make an investment and create a separate foundation. Some foundations are part of the corporation. Some corporate foundations or corporate, it's not always a foundation. It could be a foundation. They could give money out of their marketing budget. They can give money out of a philanthropic pot, but it's not a foundation. It could be like a team of employees that make the decisions. There's all kind of ways that corporations can give. And then you have, of course, foundations, which are organizations that are designed to advance some mission or some cause, and they have a responsibility. And there's public and private foundations. I know, y'all, this is a whole lot. The public and private foundations, but some foundations actually have to give a certain amount of money. And then there's family foundations, all that. That's a whole nother video. All right, back to grants. If you stuck with me, you really want to know this stuff. So, like I said, it's money that's given to you. You don't have to pay it back as long as you're going to do what you say you're going to do. Now, this is the thing about grants. The most success I have seen with grant applications are when you are able to essentially communicate how you're helping to solve a problem. If you have a grant and your grant is, I need some money to start a farm because that is what I want to do, and I'll be the first farmer in my family. Whereas that is very noble and that is very impactful. It's impactful more to you and your situation. Grants are more successful when you can show how that impact is more transformational. So you wanting to start a farm so that you can fulfill your lifelong dream may not be as fulfilling as you wanting to start a farm to create a model farm to teach other farmers or inspire other farmers within your population to go into agriculture, which will address the need for more agriculturalists and farmers as identified by the USDA, blah, 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 blah. You see what I'm saying? You got to show them how you're part of a solution to something. And a lot of grant applications come from we need your money. Look how terrible this is. We need your money. Now, sometimes that narrative does work. If it is a food kitchen, okay, that is providing food to homeless populations or to people who are living in abject poverty, etc. But even they are able to say, by providing these nutritional meals, it is going to create these positive things. They're still going to be able to communicate how it solves a problem. Disaster relief, which is one of the biggest scams out there. It is. But there are some organizations doing great work, but they're usually not the ones that you see receiving these astronomical gifts. For the smaller ones that are really doing the grassroots work, and, you know, the larger ones, they lie and say, that they're doing it proportionally as well. But they're still able to say by providing basic needs, we're helping to stem, STEMI, is STEMI a word? I think it is STEMI. But we're able to help decrease the likelihood of, contagious diseases becoming more prevalent or whatever it is. I'm just trying to come up with stuff off the cuff, but they still are able to communicate how you solve a problem. So number one, with your grant applications, you need to show broader impact. And it doesn't have to be national impact. You are creating impact in your zip code, okay, in your county. Something you've got to show where by giving or awarding a grant to you, you are providing a service. And that's even true when it comes to government grants. And I'm going to actually break down one that we're pursuing, the Value Add Producer Grant, VAPG. I'm going to break that one down as to how it can be used to build capacity. That's another thing when it comes to writing grants. It's really important how you phrase something. Give me sounds very different than invest in our capacity building, right? So you want to make sure you're coming from an asset forward, asset minded standpoint versus needs based. Needs-based works more if you are a 501c3, but even then, you're still going to communicate by fulfilling this need, we're helping with this problem. But for those of us who are business owners, right? If you are a farm, you're a business, you are entrepreneurial. So the conversation is, we are an asset to the community. We provide jobs. We provide nutrition. We provide the textiles in which people need to have their clothing and all of the other things that they're accustomed to. Like, we make those things possible. And coming from that asset-based viewpoint as opposed to needs-based can make your grant applications more compelling. Another thing about grant applications is not everybody reviewing it necessarily is an expert in what you're talking about. So if you are a farmer and you're writing a grant application, there are going to be people, possibly, it may just be one person, it may be a team of people. There may be some kind of rating scale, but not everybody is going to necessarily be an expert in agriculture, in farming, in gardening. So you want to write it in a way, a lot of people think that they need to have these 50-cent words. My grandma used to call them a 50-cent word. You think you need to have all this technical language. It needs to be something that is easily digestible by someone who's not an expert in your field or not an expert in your specialty area. So don't think that you have to use all these grandiose terms. You don't. You can keep it simple. You can keep it, as a matter of fact, it's best to keep it simple. Make it, ensure that it answers all the questions that are being asked. And you don't, if they ask you one particular thing, answer that question. Don't try to, flim flam over here and give some other answer because you feel that information is more relevant. No, you give them what they ask for and you give it in a way that is easily digestible. They shouldn't have to go and Google or, if you use abbreviations or acronyms, you have to spell it out for them. Everybody is not going to necessarily know that. So make sure that you make it digestible. And a tip is, reach out to a grad student or an English teacher and pay someone a few dollars to proofread it and make sure that it reads well and that it flows well. It's worth the investment because those critiques can help you become a better writer as well. I've written millions and millions and millions of dollars worth of grants, and I still need my stuff to be proofed because A second set of eyes is just always a good thing. If a third set is even better. So make sure you do that. I have some notes over here. So I'm over here looking to make sure. All right, so when it comes to, I feel like that should be a separate video when it comes to looking for grants. But I'm going to go ahead and just touch on that real quick. This video is getting a little longer than I had anticipated, but that's okay. All right, so grant researching is actually a whole profession. There are people that is what they do for a living. They research grant opportunities. People who research grants are not necessarily people who write grants. When I was in grant writing, I always worked for organizations and wrote grants for those organizations. But I would have departments that would come to me and be like, hey, we need a grant for, like the police department, we need a grant for some new radios. Okay, which grant? Like they would expect me, because I'm the grant writer, to automatically know where the grants are. Grants take research. And that's why when a lot of people reach out to me and they want me to tell them about specific grants in their state or in their area, like I don't have the capacity to be able to do that. That takes research. I will tell you some places you can start looking. If you're interested in federal grants, the number one place to look is grants.gov. All right. That will have all the USDA grants. It will have other grants that are related to agriculture, that are related to farming, and try to look up terms. Like look up, of course, the terms that automatically relate to what you're doing. If you have a farm, look up farm, see what's relevant there, but also look up components of your operation. For example, we are a farm that's very much environmentally conscious, right? We are working to be as green as we can, to be good stewards to the earth. So not only do I look up grants that are related to the farm and agriculture, and we're medicinal plants and herbs and, those usual suspects, I also look up grants related to environmental sustainability. If you want solar panels on your farm, look at grants for solar panels. Don't limit yourself to just grants about farms. If you have a farm that has an agritourism component and you educate people during your tours, then you have an educational component. So you may want to find fundable components of your operations as well. So you want to go to grants.gov. You can also go to the USDA, and they have the capability on their site for you to look up your state and go and see all the different agencies. BAPG is actually under their Office of Rural Development, I think. And, USDA is a mammoth of agency, and they have all kind of sub-agencies under them, and they have different grant programs as well. You also want to look at your state Department of Agriculture site. Does your state have grants that could benefit your operations? And look to see if they have small business grants. Do they have entrepreneurship grants? Again, don't limit yourself to just think that you can only look up grants specifically for farms. Okay, so the next on the list is look to see if the major employers in your area have a philanthropic program or have some type of corporate social responsibility. And let me just say this, it's not always going to look like a grant. It may come out of the marketing budget. It may come out of some other budget. But you want to check to see if they have some type of giving program and who's eligible for that. Now, if you see that it's only 501c3s, for example, or nonprofits that are eligible, you can ask if they allow fiscal sponsors. And a fiscal sponsorship is essentially a relationship you would have with the nonprofit in which the nonprofit would apply, and then you would be sort of like a sub-grantee. One, you want to make sure that's okay with the funder. Two, you want to make sure it is a nonprofit that's in alignment with what you're doing. Okay. If it is a kids after school program and you are getting a grant for a cattle ranch, there's not alignment there. Like, you don't want to abuse the ability to secure fiscal sponsorship. But if it is a nonprofit that is related to what you're doing and they have the capacity to be the fiscal sponsor, then they could actually apply and then you would receive the money. Typically, you would pay your fiscal sponsor a percentage that's agreed upon upfront, and the funder knows that this fiscal sponsor is receiving this percentage of the grant funds. So that's just a little aside. You can also partner with a nonprofit and be a partner on a grant. And we've done that where we have been written into a grant proposal. Now, there are things we have to do. We can't just get the money and, do whatever we want to do. We are committed to doing certain things in fulfillment of our partnership. Then look at the entities that operate within your space. For example, if you are a vegetable farmer, right? You're going to look at the grocery stores and you're going to see what kind of programs they have. Different food distribution centers, the large ones, see what kind of programs they have. You may look at larger nonprofits. Okay, nonprofits, there are large nonprofits that write grants all the time. You're going to look at them and see who's within that space and see if they have programs. So that's just four. And I'm going to stop there because this video is getting long. That's just 4 areas that you can look for grant opportunities. There are other areas that you can look, and there are other partnerships. It doesn't always have to be grant per se, but I'm just calling it grant to keep it nice and neat in this video. I hope this was helpful. I know this was a lot. I will be sharing with you more in depth different kind of funding or fundraising tactics that we have employed that have been successful. I will also share with you about our crowdfunding campaign. If that's of interest, y'all tell me in the comments down below. And like I said, I'm gonna talk about the value add producer grant, which typically I think they open that up in March. One more tip. Give yourself time to write a proposal. Give yourself time to write it. Give yourself time for it to be reviewed and proofed. And for some of these federal proposals, and sometimes state, if you do it in advance, you can actually send it to the program officer and they'll look at it and tell you if there's anything in there that throws up a red flag or any ineligible costs that you may be asking for. So give yourself some time. And if you see that a deadline is during planting season or during harvest season, like now is the perfect time for a lot of farmers and folks in the agricultural space to be looking and researching grant opportunities and maybe even working on some proposals. Because for those who aren't in full production during the winter time, this is a downtime. And yeah, it's a time you usually relax, and I get it. But, the money is not gonna ask for you. You got to ask for it. So I'm going to stop there. Thank you so much. I hope this was helpful and beneficial to your efforts. If you have some questions, meet me in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.